Hello, Dick. It's Roy Edwards from Great Britain, your old Scientific American buddy, calling to wish you a very happy 90th birthday. My, what an achievement. Quite remarkable. I never knew you were 90. I'm a mere whippersnapper of 80. Long way to go to catch you up, Dick. Oh, you might recognise that cap. I'm wearing it in your honour. It's one I bought at Preston Trail all those years ago, where you took me on a few occasions, as I recall. What a magnificent place, hey? Verdant fairways, no members, hardly any members playing golf. We once played in a six-ball and had 6 chariots, 6 buggies. How extraordinary. Could only happen at Preston Trail, I suppose. I'm calling to remind you of one or two events that took place on the infamous, or I suppose some would call famous, Scientific American sales meetings, which I dubbed Scientific American Sales Holidays, because the Peels, the erstwhile owners of the company, amongst others, always treated us most royally. It was a tax write-off, I suppose, but there you are. They were quite generous. Yeah, we went to China. I think it was in 1983. And you and I shared a lot of times together. Going down the Yangtze, as I recall, enjoying a wonderful lunch on board prepared by the industrious Chinese. I don't think the Americans realised that to clean the chickens, they used to trail them behind on rope in the Yangtze River. It's a wonder we all didn't die of food poisoning, but we were a resilient bunch, a very resilient bunch. I remember going with you at, something like 6 o'clock in the morning when we were in downtown Beijing to see Ma's tomb, which was in Tiananmen Square. And they took us at something like, 6:30, as I said. When we got into the square, it was very unreal. There must have been 10,000 Chinese, all lined up in groups of 100 or so, all diligently waiting to go in. They might have been there for years, who knows? And we marched right up to the front of the queue and straight into the tomb. I was a bit uneasy about that, but whatever. That's the Chinese, they look after their special guests. And I remember composing a little poem because they took us all over the place. Xi'an, Guangzhou, Beijing, and everywhere we went into a pagoda. And this kind of got to me, and I remember sitting on the back of the bus on one occasion and singing a little ditty which went something like this. One more pagoda to go down, one more pagoda to see. If I see another pagoda, I'll sick up on Mr. Huang's knee. Well, it sounded funny at the time, and now it sounds truly revolting. But it will bring back a memory to you. Mr. Huang, as you probably remember, was our erstwhile guide who looked after us, particularly our accommodations. He always gave me and my colleague Bernard Steele wonderful rooms everywhere we went. The Americans could never quite understand that, but he rather liked the English in spite of the Opium Wars. There's another little ditty which I remember telling you, which lingers fondly in your memory, I know. It's about a story of when I went up to Scotland to see one of the distillers called Matthew Gloag. And I parked my car outside the front door, as you could in those days, amongst the horse droppings, which were all over the place, much to my disgust, and went into the reception, which was a bizarre place. Ladies all over the place, typing diligently away, and an imposing figure standing in the middle of the reception, surrounded by sawdust. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. And he said, "Tell me, my young man, who you're coming to see today?" Wow. Bit unusual, I thought. Quick as a flash, I said, "I'm coming to see Mr. Sheriff." "What are you coming to see Mr. Sheriff about today?" he said, which roughly translated for your friends by now totally mystified about what's coming next, means, "What are you coming to see Mr. Sheriff about today?" And I replied, "I'm coming to see Mr. Sheriff about advertising in the British edition of the Geographical magazine which I represent." And he looked at me down his long nose and said, "There'll be no advertising today, young man." And I think he expected me to scamper out of the building, which I was thinking about, and then a voice came from the bowels of the building, and this gentleman appeared. "Oh, it's all right, Mr. Gloag," said the nice man. "I have an appointment with Mr. Edwards." And this was Mr. Sheriff, and he took me into his office, and he said, "Oh, I'm very sorry about that, Mr. Edwards, but that's Mr. Gloag, Mr. Matthew Gloag, and he's the great-great-great-great-grandson of the founder, and he stands there every day. He has no other role to play in the company, but he comes in every day, and every time a visitor comes in, he frightens them away. That's what he thinks his role is. So never mind about that. How can I help you?" And that was my experience of going to Scotland to sell whiskey. I never did make that sale, but I made many others which managed to keep me rolling along. So there's a couple of little ditties from our Scientific American days. But what I most like about our relationship now, or these days, Dick, is the emails which you send to me most weeks. Lots of jokes, some which I've heard a few times, but I never say that. Sometimes I do. Some which I've never heard. And over the years, they've provided me with a fund of jokes to tell at the golf club whenever I've been captaining a team and I've needed an appropriate joke to tell. And they've always been original, and they've always got a laugh. So thanks for that. But it's nice to have this association, and long may it continue. And enjoy your 90th birthday with your friends, your family, and your loved ones. And who knows, Dick, when you reach 100, I'll come to see you, old buddy. That's a promise. Bye for now.